And we are live from the heartland of America. And from my heart to yours, I'm Jeffey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Welcome to the channel. We remind you to unindoctrinate yourself. You're not filled with original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. You're divine. You're sovereign. You're free. And if it is to be, it's up to me, as in you. If you didn't see the show last night with Mike King from realhistorychannel.org, you need to check it out. Very, very powerful. We'll be hearing more from Mike. I use a lot of Mike's information from realhistorychannel.com, and that's the case again today. Exciting, powerful times, folks. But one of the dangers is that we can get too complacent. We can think we've got it won. I know all of you aren't sports fans, but having played competitive sports and having watched them for quite a while, every now and then, what am I doing? Every now and then a team will think that they've got it won. And they get a little lackadaisical. They get a little complacent. And before you know it, the team that they were defeating soundly and easily comes back and steals a victory. We don't want to allow that to happen. We want to say no to the coup d'etat, the attempt to use one flu and plain old crazy to overthrow a duly elected president, thanks to the Real History Channel. And as Tracy says, don't rest on your laurels. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. I feel a couple of podcasts today, and we'll see what happens. And when this vermin right here crawls out from underneath his rock, you know that there's nothing good coming on. There's nothing good coming on. And he so very rarely says anything about politics. He very rarely interjects himself into the political debate. And that's usually because there are presidents that are his bitches. But that notwithstanding, we have to know history, or we will repeat it. Those that do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. It's written by the winners, which means we'll lose. But in this tactical tug of war, and I'm reading a quote from Mike King on the Real History Channel, in this tactical tug of war over whose script will be chosen for the final act of DOSOM WIST, the movie, and you can refer to the box below for words that you don't know. And if you want to be part of our just-in-case email list, we're not selling it, we're not marketing it, send an email to Gotham, like in Batman, LTD @gmail.com. Say, list me. And Gates and Soros should have an arm wrestling contest for most evil man in the world. But the final act of DOSOM WIST, the movie, we have on one side President Trump and the Patriots, that's us, proposing the happy ending, not that kind of a happy ending, don't get excited, version of reopening businesses and resuming the counterattack on the deep state, or maybe even wrapping it up by Easter weekend. And in the other camp, the undefeated, remember that, the undefeated and still mighty globalists, whose version of the closing scene climaxes with the Herbert Hooverization of President Donald J. Trump and his allies worldwide by imposing an indefinite economy-killing shelter-in-place regime upon planet Earth. Psychopath Bill Gates, for example, who in Mike's perfect world would be beaten to death with hammers on live TV, is calling for up to an additional 10 weeks of shutdown. Beaten to death on live TV with hammers. Can I say not like sledgehammers, but like little baby, like with rubber mallets? Let's let it take a long time and be like the mallets I make the rods with. That would be most satisfying. But anyway, folks, Bill Gates weighing in, doesn't weigh in very much. And he's weighing in on this. Just want to make sure I didn't skip any fantasticness, and I didn't. So a little bit of history to give you some perspective, and a little bit of history to give you some encouragement. In 1928, Republican Herbert Hoover was elected by winning 40 of the then 48 states. It is oddly cruel but funny. But if you remember Archie and Edith on All in the Family, Mister, we could use a man like Herbert Hoover again. Yeah, but anyway, he took 40 out of 48 states. It was the third consecutive Republican landslide, including Warren Harding in 1920 and Calvin Coolidge in 1924. And Hoover inherited from his predecessors the booming economy of the Roaring Twenties. And he optimistically spoke of continued peace and prosperity for the nation. We've got a president right now speaking optimistically of peace and prosperity for our nation. We heard from the Shrub about austerity, about tightening our belts. We heard from the Muslim Hussein Obama about it's not like it used to be. Do we have to can we live on less? Yes, we can. Thank you, Satan. But anyway, you heard all that from those guys. But now we have a president that's saying, let's make America great again. Let's keep America great. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it roaring. And cousins, it was roaring. Best economy ever, best stock market ever, lowest unemployment ever. Even the kittens were happier. And they were getting along with puppies, if you can believe that. But about 6 months into Donald J. Trump's term, the Federal Reserve and its subordinate banks deliberately choked off the money supply, which crushed the highly leveraged stock market. Excuse me, this is Herbert Hoover, not Donald Trump. 6 months into his term, Herbert Hoover's term, the Fed and its subordinate banks choked off the money supply. Can't have too much prosperity out there. Can't have too much democracy out there. We got to control that. Can't have people being self-sufficient. Can't have these roaring 20s continue, or these people will find out they don't need us. So they choked off the money supply, crashed the highly leveraged stock market in 1929, and ushered in the Great Depression. Businesses fell like dominoes. Fed continued to contract the money supply so that businesses and people couldn't get their hands on money to repay their old debts. So they were in big trouble, and on came the Great Depression. Listen to this. This is important. And C60 is important too, especially in these days when you're worried about being sick, when you know that you don't have your body in the condition that it needs to be in, and you're a good host to sickness when you want to be a bad host to sickness. C60 helps make you a bad host to sickness and helps evict heavy metals and things that are not good for you. Plus, it's like the fountain of youth in a bottle. Go to c60purplepower.com. Use TCW10 for your 10% off. And like a trio of con artists working the same mark, the Fed continued to throttle the economy. The fake news blamed Hoover for not doing enough. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Both of those things. And the communists organized spontaneous street actions like the 1932 Bonus March. Folks, I'm talking about Herbert Hoover. And we've got right now a Fed, or we did have a Fed, I'll get to that was trying to throttle the economy. We had the fake news blaming Donald Trump. He's not doing enough. He's doing too much. We had a fake media blaming Donald Trump. And we had communists, Soros-backed Antifa, Soros-backed AOC types out there organizing spontaneous, quote-unquote, street actions and street violence, not quite like it was back in the 30s, but bad enough. A parallel nonetheless. It's important that we see that. It's important that we get that. And the end result was, again, a president, a roaring economy, patriotism, things going great. Fed constricts the money supply. Fake news blames it on the president. Leftist forces march in the streets and raise hell, talk about socialism and communism. End result, 1932 election brings an end to 12 years of conservative Republican governance. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, bad guy. We're going to talk about him in the future. Really bad guy. Democrats, supermajority in the Congress. Most of them, many of them, communists and socialists. And we talked last night about World War II with Mike King. A lot of people had their eyes open to a lot of history about World War II. And here's the thing, folks. If Herbert Hoover had won the 1932 presidential election, World War II would never have happened. The time, the season, the positioning would have passed. That's how important it is for you to go vote in 2020. And some of you people that are so holy, and some of you people that are so woke, you're really a joke, but you think you're so woke that you can't vote. It was people like you that defeated Herbert Hoover in 1932. It was people like you that elected FDR, and it was people like you that caused World War II. And if you sit on your sanctimonious hindquarters and talk about how holy and how woke and how advanced you are because you don't vote, you run the risk of starting World War III. But we're not going to let that happen, because not only are we going to go to the polls, we're going to make you feel like such a POS that you'll go too, but in a namaste kind of way. And let me just drop a thought into your mind about World War II. We know that they, the cabal, the fear and guilt, blood magic control matrix, we know they lied to us about everything. We believe they lied to us about everything. We now have got to the place where we've now arrived at the place where we realize that everything that history tells us is a lie. Like Napoleon Bonaparte said, history is a set of lies agreed upon. But even in this genre, I'm not talking about the truthers, the fake truthers, the pseudo-truthers. I'm not talking about the ass media. I'm talking about us, unindoctrinated folks. We even continue to believe that the mass media has lied to us about everything. The ass media has lied to us about everything, but they told us the truth about World War II. Really? Really? They lied to us about everything else, but they didn't lie to us about World War II? Really? Do you really believe that? Just wanted you to ponder that. And next we have a quote from Louis McFadden, who was a congressman from Pennsylvania. He was chairman of the House Banking Committee, and he testified in 1933. Chairman of the House Banking Committee testified. The stock market crash was not accidental. It was a carefully contrived occurrence. The international bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair here so that they might emerge as rulers of us all. Louis McFadden, congressman, Republican from Pennsylvania, chairman of the House Banking Committee, testimony under oath before Congress in 1933. They're trying to do the same thing to this president so they can do the same thing to us people. Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey, ladies and gentlemen. This is real stuff. Thankfully, President Donald Trump has learned from history. Many say that he's experienced history firsthand. I don't know, but that's an interesting theory. Because in 2018, President Trump fired Fed chairperson Janet Yellen. And just as an interesting note, President Trump appointed Jerome Powell, and Jerome Powell was the first non-LEMISH Fed chairman in over 30 years. And I'm sure that's just coincidental. In so doing, President Trump took his first step in disarming the Fed, preventing them from, or lessening the chances of them constricting cash flow to bring about an economic crash. And then he puts down impeachment. He puts down the Russia thing. He puts down the Fed chairman. And now comes, when they can't beat him, now comes the DOSOM WIST, designed to do what the central banks could no longer do: Herbert Hooverize the Trump stock market and economy. And in case you didn't notice, yesterday the Dow gained more points than it's ever gained in a single day in history. And if you think all this is just Q nonsense, I'm getting some emails. Jeff, you went down the Q hole. Jeff, you're so stupid. Jeff, you're so silly. Jeff, you're so dumb. It's all Q nonsense. It's not true. So I'm saying that there's a Herbert Hooverization, an attempted Herbert Hooverization of Donald Trump. Mike King from the Real History Channel saying there's an attempted Hooverization of Donald Trump. But that's just Q nonsense, really, because it's funny. Real Politics on March 25th, which is 3 days ago, had the headline, "Will Trump become the new Hoover?" It's just a Q nonsense. Nothing to see here. Move right along. And then there's this story that you see on your screen from the Washington Post. COVID-19 may destroy Trump's presidency. And you can almost see some stains on there because it looks like they might have ejaculated on that headline because they're so excited about it. And the subheadline, I don't know if you can make it out: has Trump plunged America into another Great Depression? Tell me again how what we're talking about. Tell me again how what we're speaking about is just Q nonsense. Can you tell me one more time? Tell it to me one more time, Captain Tennille. Tell it to me one more time. That is just, we're just making it up. We're just the ones with the eyes to see. We're just the ones with the ears to hear. The art of the deal. The art of the deal. Is that a Confederate battle flag in the background? It is, and you'll see why. It looks like, and I see the questions in the chat room. We'll get there in just a minute. It looks like our art of the deal president has masterfully maneuvered the DOSOM WIST to backfire on its makers. Just like the Russian collusion backfired, just like the Ukrainian phone call backfired, just like impeachment backfired, President Trump is winning. The good guys are winning. The good gals are winning. And yet, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to be mindful, because here's something to keep an eye on. And Mike King identified this at realhistorychannel.com, and it's really good. Here's something to keep an eye on. There's 50 states. 24 of the 50 state governors are Democrats. Keep that in mind. Including California, including New York, including New Jersey. And there's a lot of big city mayors that are Democrats. So the question becomes, how far are these governors, how far are these big city mayors willing, how far are they able to go in attempts to stop President Trump? And as a Southerner who has the blood of the Confederacy running through my veins, I find myself asking, How the hell are these idiots all of a sudden now about states' rights? Just a thought. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cousins of all ages. And allow me to put another bug in your ear, not literally, but something that will help you. We've long been associated with Mystech. You know that Mystech puts your cells at harmony instead of chaos. You know that Mystech tunes you to the ideal Schumann resonance of the earth. You've seen how Mystech puts your blood in a place where it's very hard for pathogens to come into it. You've seen how it improves EMF. You've seen how it improves your subtle body, your Kirlian photography. You can still get 20% off on your Mystech. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Mystech logo or tab, and you'll get a full 20% off. And you are at home, get it, experience it, and know how good the Mystech really is, ladies and gentlemen. You know, all we hear from the mass media and all we hear from the ass media is how bad things are and how bad they're going to get. But you and I, we know it's an insane asylum, but we're crazy enough to think that we run this asylum. And all you really need to know is you got President Donald Trump in his inaugural address saying, the most historic thing about this election is not that I won, but the most historic thing about this election is that we're restoring the power of governance to the American people. And you got Joe Biden telling a UAW, United Auto Workers, a hardworking union member that dared to ask him a question. Joe Biden tells that hardworking American, I don't work for you. That's right, Joe, you don't, because you are not holding any office and you will never be the president of the United States. So you know what? You're right. You don't work for me because I wouldn't hire your crazy, demented, nutty ass. We are crazy enough to think that we run this asylum. We are crazy enough to think that the world's not bad and getting worse. We're crazy enough to think that the world is good and getting better. We're crazy enough to think that we don't have original sin, but we got the spark of divinity within. We're crazy enough to think that we don't need salvation and we don't have to go groveling on our knees to somebody's savior. We're crazy enough to think we don't need crosses, we don't need blood, we don't need atonement, we don't need your HERU, DISTU, and we don't need your MANOFS either. We're crazy enough to think that we've got life and life abundant right within our grasp as we work and grow and develop ourselves as human individuals. Resist fear porn. It's going to be better than ever. And go vote. That's what I have to say here today, my friends. That's what I have to say about this. Let's learn from history. Let's don't be doomed to repeat it. And let's go ahead into the chat room now and see what you brilliant individuals have to say. See what you brilliant individuals have to say. And always keep this in mind. If you hear a word you're unfamiliar with, please refer to the word list in the description box. We do have our own language, but it's not Klingon. It's just some Illuminati shit that we're pulling on the Illuminati. It's just a code, a couple of codes I put together. Last night's show was awesome. Thank you, Brandon. It's must listen to. It is much must listen to stuff, ladies and gentlemen. People don't want to hear the truth. Some of us do, but most do not. Unfortunately, that's true, but we're still going to tell it to everybody and let them deal with it. He is evil genetically. Speaking of Bill Gates, Ken's here from C60 Purple Power. Turn off your TV is a great idea. A great idea. Hot damn it, can't stand Bill Gates. Evil Bill and the blue screen of death. Yeah, if you've ever seen that on your computer. Not good. Not good. Okay, what else we got here? What else we got here, ladies and gentlemen? It is oddly cruel but funny, beating Bill Gates to death on live TV with a hammer. Yeah. Okay, what else we got going on here? Charles Lindbergh, anti-war party. Yeah, Lindbergh wasn't the hero that he's projected to be, in my opinion. This is an actual question. Are we by chance steering the USA into a war with the cabal run countries by breaking the Fed? It's actually the opposite. Remember, World War II would not have happened. And it's funny, I just put that in right when I sat down. It wasn't in the original presentation. It was kind of in, what's that called? A synchronistic hookup with Alexa. If Herbert Hoover had been reelected in 32, there never would have been a World War II. Because the conservative, American first, sovereign nation, Hoover would have been in charge. The only way you get a war is if a warmonger is in charge. And we've got a president now that is waging peace. They wanted to fight China. He said no. They wanted to fight North Korea. He said no. They wanted to fight Iran. He said no. This president is waging peace, and he's bringing our troops home. So no. What happened yesterday helps ensure that there will be no war. Helps ensure that there will be no war. So take a deep breath and realize what's going on. And the cabal-run countries have been getting freed one by one since Trump came in. It's actually the opposite of what you saw before World War II. The cabal was capturing country by country by country. And now we're liberating country by country by country. This is a really interesting comment. After we pull out the Fed is just a company. There's nothing to pull out of. It's just a company that President Donald Trump has now taken control of. The NWO and the cabal, that's what you call beating the deep state. That's what you call draining the swamp. Are we free to go? Alexa, you got to remember, we've been free the whole time. We're free. They're the usurpers. We're free. They're the bad people. We don't have to go anywhere. This is our home. And the goal is not to be controlled by anybody, because the government that governs best is the government that governs least. That's the goal. That's the idea. That's what we are pushing for. Every country to be their own sovereign nation, as Javanka says. And I agree with Brandon. That was a great question. Hopefully debt erased globally. I think you're going to see some remarkable, amazing stuff happen. And Cynthia pointed out so adroitly yesterday that early in his administration, President Trump signed a bill that allowed him to seize the assets of companies and people that were found to be connected to child abuse, human trafficking, and things of that nature. What are the chances that the Federal Reserve and the human beings that run this private company are not implicated and involved in child trafficking? Zero. Was yesterday's move a fulfillment of Donald Trump's promise to seize the assets of companies of which the Federal Reserve is, that are involved in human trafficking, which the Federal Reserve is? And can you take all that money and cancel all the debt? Sure you can. Or you can do like the Chancellor of Germany did in 1933 and said, that debt, we ain't paying it. And I'm all for that too. Jeff says he's free from LEMISH control. I'm still concerned. Well, Brandon, let me remind you that President Donald Trump was under LEMISH control to the tune of $1 billion when he came into office. They saved him. He worked for them. Israel has always wanted Jerusalem as the recognized capital, and no American president would give it to them. They couldn't buy it with all their trillions. Israel's always wanted sovereignty over the Golan Heights. No American president would give it to them. They couldn't buy it with their trillions. So President Trump brought him into the Oval Office and said, sit down, boys. I know you want Jerusalem as the capital. I know you want the Golan Heights. I want my $1 billion forgiven. Can we work a deal? And they did. Donald Trump is now free from his debt to that shadowy cabal. Some don't believe there's a cabal. Yeah, some people don't. And some people don't. I'll just leave it at there. California's falling apart. It is, and it couldn't happen to a nicer place. We must resist globalization at all costs. That's what President Trump is all about. After Trump, it won't matter. Well, first of all, let's deal with while Trump is here. So we still got 2020, maybe 2024. And then we'll reassess and see what happens between now and then. But I'm telling you, Sorcha, things are going to be better than they've ever been. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me. Let's see. What else we got here? Tracy runs her own asylum. Me too. I run it along with someone else. Okay, here we go. Trump's been in some shady places in his life, still knows all the bad guys. So I'm hoping the fence soundly be hard, but I don't. Anyway, I can't really make sense of that. But think of how bad the mainstream media hates Trump. Think of how badly the Democrats hate Trump. Think of how badly most of the Republicans hate Trump. Think of the millions. Okay, think of the tens of thousands of minions they've got digging through information to try to find dirt on Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had been truly dirty, we would know about it. And that's why they can't bring any of that stuff out, because it doesn't exist. Did he say some dumb things? Did he say some boorish things? Yes, he did. But he's clean. He's clean. Senile Joe, no doubt about it. Senile Joe. And Tracy brings up a great point. Trump was involved in a lot of sting. If you don't know what a sting is, look it up. It's a covert operation. Trump was involved in a lot of sting operations. Read the inaugural address. That's a really great recommendation from Lydia. Very, very good. And that's the thing about Trump. Trump doesn't say anything just for the sake of hearing himself talk. He really doesn't. The last 30 years of Trump's life has been working sting operations. I agree. 100%. Let's see. It was a great show last night. There is great discussion here today. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. This is interesting. This is not from an American. This is from a Canadian. Please vote for Donald Trump. It's not that we're not doing too good over here, but we need Donald Trump. We need leadership if Donald Trump is the president. I agree. And that's from a person that's not even an American. We salute you up north. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. And we will definitely do it. We will definitely do it. All right. What else we got here? Cry freedom and don't let slip the dogs of war. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about done here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Hopefully that one got deleted. Trump has been in the trenches with the bad guys for a good chunk of time now. Yes and no. Yes and no. Best of luck to him and the Patriots. We'll take it, even though I don't think we need it. Well, folks, there you go. This is great stuff. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you watching. And we would even more appreciate you taking action. Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled. Our job's even harder. We have to just give the information and let people convince themselves that they've been fooled. But we're up for the task. We've been picked for this. We've been assigned for this. We've been empowered for this. We are the last generation of real humans. We're here to show that the world's not bad and getting worse. It's good and getting better, and it's going to be better than it's ever been when we win, and then win again, because that's what we do. We're in the winning business, and that business, cousins, is a booming. I'm Jeffey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, reminding you to unindoctrinate yourself and encouraging you to get busy.